Chocolate is a universal symbol of joy, comfort, and celebration. But behind every creamy bite lies a story few want to hear, a story of exploitation, poverty, and childhood stolen. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the cocoa industry to expose how major chocolate brands profit from systems that trap millions of children in hazardous labor. Cocoa is a tropical crop that only thrives in a narrow chocolate belt near the equator. West Africa produces roughly 70% of the world's cocoa, with Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana together accounting for nearly 60% of global production. Smallholder farms dominate the landscape, often family-owned and labor-intensive. To keep production costs low in a highly competitive market, many farmers rely on cheap labor, including that of children, to harvest cocoa pods by hand. This labor-intensive process involves not only picking the pods, but also opening them and fermenting the beans, tasks that are dangerous when performed by children. For many families living on less than $1 a day, child labor becomes a survival mechanism. Faced with crushing poverty and fixed low prices set by governments and global markets, farmers often have no choice but to involve their children in the harvest. This systemic exploitation perpetuates a cycle of poverty and abuse that spans generations. Let's dive into the uncomfortable truth about your favorite treat. Here is the scale of the crisis. By the numbers, 1.56 million children work in cocoa fields in Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire, the world's top cocoa producers. Some are as young as 5 years old. 43% of children in these regions perform hazardous tasks, like wielding machetes or carrying 100-pound sacks. 70% of global cocoa comes from West Africa, yet farmers earn just 6% of a chocolate bar's value, down from 50% in the 1970s. Despite pledges to eradicate child labor, incidents have increased over the past decade. Why does it matter? Poverty forces families to rely on child labor. Farmers earn less than $1 per day, far below the living wage needed to afford adult workers or education. Mars, Nestlé, Hershey, Ferrero, Mondelez, Lindt, and Barry Callebaut dominate the industry and the controversy. Recent investigations reveal a 2023 CBS News expose found children as young as 5 harvesting cocoa for Mars suppliers. Internal monitoring lists were falsified, with no follow-up to ensure kids stayed in school. In 2024, Swiss media uncovered child labor in Ghana, linked to Lindt's supply chain, despite its sustainability claims, named in lawsuits alleging systemic failure to address child labor. Nestlé's Cocoa Life program covers just 5% of Ivorian farmers. Brands tout certifications like Fairtrade or Rainforest Alliance, but audits often miss hidden labor abuses. For example, Mars sources 50% certified cocoa, yet child labor persists. Cocoa farmers earn 40% of a living income, forcing them to rely on unpaid family labor. Global cocoa prices fluctuate wildly, but farmers bear the risk. Chocolate prices rose 14% in 2023, yet farmer pay stagnated. Cocoa passes through 5 to 6 intermediaries before reaching brands, making traceability nearly impossible. Cargill, a major trader, traces only 10% of its indirect suppliers. Over 16,000 children are trafficked from Mali and Burkina Faso to work on Ivorian farms, often sold for as little as $34 per child. In 2001, brands pledged to eliminate the worst forms of child labor by 2005. 2 decades later, deadlines were repeatedly extended, with a 70% reduction goal by 2020 missed entirely. Critics argue the protocol lacks enforcement, allowing brands to self-regulate without accountability. 50% of children handle pesticides without protection, leading to long-term health issues. CBS News filmed a boy nearly losing fingers to a machete. 30% of Ivorian child laborers never attend school. Can the industry change? Companies like TraceX use geolocation mapping to track cocoa from farm to factory, complying with new EU deforestation laws. AI tools detect deforestation and labor violations in remote areas. Child labor monitoring and remediation systems, CLNRS, have reduced child labor by 51% in pilot areas by enrolling kids in school and supporting families. However, coverage remains limited. Brands like Tony's Chocolonely prove ethical sourcing is possible. By paying farmers 40% above market rates, they eliminate the need for child labor. EU deforestation regulation, EUDR, requires brands to prove supply chains are ethical or face fines. In 2023, a class action suit accused Mars, Cargill, and Mondelez of consumer fraud over child labor. What you can do: swap your chocolate. So share this video. Consumer power drove past changes. Let's push for a child labor-free cocoa industry by 2030. The chocolate industry is at a crossroads. We can either accept exploitation as the cost of indulgence or demand a future where no child loses their childhood to our cravings. The next time you unwrap a chocolate bar, ask yourself, is this sweet moment worth their bitter sacrifice? Subscribe for more hard-hitting investigations. Together we can make ethical chocolate the norm.